Hello, good evening, good day, everybody, and welcome to the 260th episode of the Ask Abhijit show. Hope everybody is doing great. Let us see who all is there on the live chat. I can see Amisha Mishra, Gaurish KB, Geopolitical Dubey from Indore, Yash Tyagi, Somi Jain, Event Countdown, the Bharat Emperor, Kumar Kanishk, Spade Vidhi Manyar, Uju, Sumit Agarwal, Tripti Mishra, Rishabh Yadav, who says it is not live. If it is not live, how is this happening, sir? And Xenomorphosis, Rajat Duhan, Rohit Janged, Hitanshu Mehta, Samar Tripathi, Unknown, Karthik D.A., Shivasai, Alvin Rodriguez, Dheeraj Kamath, Nanda Kizor, NTN 888, Sonia Sinha, Spade, Mystic SK, Dheeraj Kamath, Sharma, Nikhil Vakode, Rahul Dunake, Kumar Kanishk, Kala Chakram, Smoky Abhishek S, who is a new member. Welcome. Thank you so much for becoming a member. Dr. Ritvik Patnaik, Yami, Manisha Methi, Sumit Agarwal, Sarang Ninale, Lone Walker, Dhruv Dhuria, Abhinash Acharya, Pranay Puranik, Shai Sasank, Ashwani, Yuvraj Cheb, Ashish Pandel, Abhishek P, Info Edge, Rashmi Rathore, Tejas, Anonymous, Mr. Bin Salman, Dipti, Designer Yesh, Abhijit M, Shresh Mishra, Uchiha YT, Kapalin, Kyadi the Chad, Chetan Aradhya, Bai, Ruchika, Pal Kaur, and so many other people. Vikash PJ, McLovin, Anonymous Scientist, Priyanka Javalia, Hunter Kenway, and everybody else. Okay. Thank you so much to all of you for being on the live chat, on the live stream. Let's take some questions. What questions do we have? The Strummer says, what are my views on the British F-35 being easily detected? So the Indian authorities put out a tweet, I believe. I think the Indian Navy put out a tweet saying that the British F-35 was detected and brought in for processing or something like that. Well, I don't know. So I've always maintained that it's not the best aircraft in the world. It doesn't mean it's a terrible aircraft, but so maybe it's detectable by the Indian detection systems. Maybe it is. Looks like it is, right? So if it is so, then I would say my view is that I'm glad that it was easily detected by India. So what happened is that this aircraft, there was this aircraft carrier, British aircraft carrier, that is currently operating somewhere in the Western Indian Ocean, also allegedly called the Arabian Sea. And one of the F-35s was trying to land on the aircraft carrier in bad weather, a lot of rainfall and all. They made multiple passes but was unable to land. It was running short of fuel, so it had to then move to and seek a landing in Thiruvananthapuram. And we allowed the aircraft to land, and we refueled it, and we may have sent it back on its way, so, eventually, possibly. So that's what happened, and it looks like we were able to detect it pretty easily. So nice. What about your stealth? Ashish says, DRDO and IIT Delhi demonstrate quantum entanglement-based free space quantum secure communication over more than 1 kilometer distance. What does this mean? So, okay, DRDO IIT Delhi demonstrate quantum entanglement-based free space quantum secure communication. Quantum entanglement-based quantum communications. So quantum entanglement is a property, quantum mechanical property, where if you have a pair of entangled particles, which means that they are both described by the same wave function, then if you have access to one particle and you know its state and properties, then you will immediately know the state of the other particle as well instantaneously, no matter how near or far it is. Even if it is 100 light years away, you'll immediately know some aspects of its properties. That's quantum entanglement. And this can allow you to have very secure communications. That this is the basis of a set of new emerging technologies, communication technologies, and maybe you can it can be super secure, and nobody can snoop on it, and so on and so forth, that sort of thing. So and the Chinese have been at the forefront of this technology. They had launched a satellite called Mesius, I believe, a few years ago, and they were able to have communications between the satellite and a ground station over several hundred kilometers. in real time or something like that. Using They were able to entangle particles between the satellite and a ground station. So India is now beginning to, looks like, based on this piece of news that you're telling me, looks like India is making some kind of progress in this. So I think it's good. Uh, India obviously needs to ensure it doesn't get left behind when it comes to quantum technologies and so on. So quantum entanglement based secure communication is essentially, if you do it right, nobody can hack it. It is super encrypted and so on. Nobody can break the encryption. That's what one hears. I have not really looked into it, but yeah. So if this is true, this news report, then it's good progress for India in that direction. Kumar Kanishka says Mr. Gandhi justified Brits for Jallianwala Bagh massacre. What can be the reason for justification? Can you discuss his actual statement? Why is I am not an expert in Mr. Gandhi. Mr. Gandhi is not somebody who interests me tremendously. I don't know if he justified the Jallianwala Bagh massacre or not, but clearly he had a very lenient perspective on what the British did. I'm not sure if he actually supported the massacre, but I don't think he rallied the nation to stand up against the British and depose the British for what they had done. That he did not. So I don't know if he did any justification. Okay, I don't know his actual statements. I am not aware of it. But one does know that Mr. Gandhi had a very lenient approach towards the British. And lots of people will be unhappy when I say that. But look, did he ever ask the Indian armed forces to take up weapons against the British? That would have solved the problem of foreign occupation in 24 hours. But he did not do that. So there we have it. God says if there was no caste discrimination. Look, I don't discuss caste. I don't discuss all these matters, okay? And I have no idea about the Bhakti movement and all that stuff. I have not studied these matters, and I have no interest in these issues that the British created of caste discrimination, and then they're blaming us for all this. Whatever problems existed in Indian society during foreign occupation, you cannot blame Indian society for those problems. Okay, let me address this. Steve Jobs was at the head. He's the founder, right? Steve Jobs of Apple. Then Steve Jobs was thrown out of his company, right? Steve Jobs was thrown out of the company he founded. And then over the next few years, Apple as a company nearly went bankrupt. And then Steve Jobs had to come back into Apple, and he was able to save Apple and create and transform it into the behemoth that it is today. Now, this intervening period between the time that Steve Jobs is thrown out of the company and the time that the company nearly goes bankrupt, Apple did terribly, right? Those years. Who will you blame for Apple's performance? Will you blame the employees, or will you blame the people who are in charge of making decisions? Will you blame the people who are in control of the company and deciding what happens in the company, or will you blame the employees? Now, during the time that India was under foreign occupation, India's society was not allowed to function the way it was supposed to function. It was not allowed to function the way it had evolved to function for thousands of years. During foreign occupation, India's society was under a tremendous amount of stress and pressure. There was an ongoing genocide, cultural genocide, endemic genocide that was going on. So all kinds of malpractices crept into Indian society. You people must have seen Harry Potter. Some of you must have seen it. In Harry Potter, there's a caste system, right? 4 houses. In Hogwarts, there are 4 houses. That's Slytherin, Hufflepuff, Ravenclaw, and Gryffindor. 4 houses. And there's a sorting hat that decides what is each student's aptitude and which house are they best suited for. Now, imagine a situation in which Voldemort wins and he destroys the sorting hat. And he says that only Slytherin is the best and everybody else is evil. And he says that henceforth, you can no longer determine what house you can go into based on your aptitudes. You can only determine what house you can go into based on the house that your parents were in. Then it becomes solidified and ossified in that manner because of the evil guy Voldemort, right? Because this Hogwarts society is no longer able to function the way it was supposed to function. So this is what happened in Indian society. We were under foreign occupation. We were under tremendous oppression. We were under we were undergoing genocide, and all kinds of bad things crept into Indian society slowly, slowly, gradually over time, over hundreds of years. And then the British come and write that it was all caste discrimination. And then Indians who are brainwashed into believing all this by the textbooks, by their teachers, by the professors, they will come and ask me these questions. So this is something that I have zero interest in. Okay. And Indian society was the best society in the world, the nicest society in the world, least amount of discrimination or whatever. I mean, if you compare to other societies, you haven't studied other societies in the world. You haven't studied Greek society, you haven't studied Roman society, you haven't studied Chinese society, you haven't studied medieval or other kinds of English society, French society. You haven't done that, but all you want to do is blame your own people and your own ancestors. This is so annoying, and I've had enough of this, seriously. Kumar okay, we took this question, didn't we? Okay, P Info Ed says this is not a question about geopolitical history or current affairs. Anyhow, since you have asked it, I will take one question like this and no more. Done bachelor's and master's in computer science, got a good job on campus after a few months. I left it for UPSC preparations and wasted 5 years. I'm seriously worried about the future. Should I upskill, get back into IT? Advice: you should get back into whatever you're good at. See, things happen, okay? Things happen. Sometimes you make bad choices in life. Everybody makes bad choices in life. You're not the only one. You made a mistake. Maybe some wiser, older people told you to do this or whatever, whichever way it happened. Okay, now you are where you are. There's no point crying about the past. At least you can learn from the past. Now you have to ask yourself, what am I good at? What are the skills that I already have? And what are the aptitudes that I have? Which means that what kind of skills can I pick up very fast, quickly? If you are good at IT, do upskill and get back into IT. Otherwise, find something else that you're good at and get into that. But yeah, after 5 years have gone down the bridge, that much time has gone. I think you need to get serious and quickly make a decision as to what you want to do, what you're good at. If you need to upskill. If you think you're great at IT, then you should get back into IT and so on. So the point is that unless I know you personally, I really cannot answer you. I can't really give you advice because I don't know you personally. I don't know what you're good at. I don't know what your strengths and weaknesses are. I don't know what your background is. So I really can't answer you, properly. But I would say you have to introspect and find out whatever it is that you're great at. And you need to double down on that and make that your career. Okay, sir? All the best. Pawan Shri Harsha says, Pranamji, if the League of Nations failed because of World War II, how come the UN is still functioning despite numerous wars? Does it show US clout? The UN is functioning, my dear friends, because it serves the interests of the dominant forces and powers in the world today. The UN doesn't do a thing for the world. It's just a huge sponge that absorbs money from all its member states. Everybody pays it some money. And the vast majority of the money that is paid to the UN is burnt up to pay the salaries and business class trips and 5-star hotel stays of its employees, of its top employees. And the UN doesn't do a thing. There are all kinds of conflicts happening in the world. There's the Ukraine conflict going on. What has the UN done to stop this conflict? Absolutely nothing. There's the Middle East crisis that's going on. It's now aflame. What has the UN done? Absolutely nothing. Toothless, useless organization. There's a tremendous humanitarian situation right now in Sudan. What is the UN doing? Nothing. So the UN exists to further the geopolitical interests of the 2 or 3 nations that really control it. Maybe two nations that control it. Historically, it's been the US and the USSR who are the major nations that control it. Then the US had a unipolar moment for 20 plus years in which it was the only nation that controlled the UN. Now China has made inroads into the UN. It has infiltrated deep into the UN, and it uses the UN to further the Chinese geopolitical agenda as best as it can. So the UN is still functioning because it has some value for the US and China and whoever else has some kind of, has the know-how of how to use these multilateral organizations to to serve their geopolitical interests. That's why the UN continues, and these nations will not allow the UN to be dissolved. They will, as long as possible, keep the UN going in the current shape and form. The UN is a snapshot of the world as it was in 1945. It's completely, terribly obsolete, outdated, useless organization, but they will keep it going as long as they can. Okay. Pawan Sriharsh says, is gender surgery deep state tool? It very well could be. It's absolutely unnatural, isn't it? And yeah, it could be, yes. Is the series Europa the last whatever, Europa the last war, factual or not? Well, if I had seen it, I would be able to answer it. I haven't seen it. Dr. Ridway Patnaik says, what if Iran lost and an American puppet state is established in Iran? What will happen to Chabahar port? Impact of Iran and Pakistan on India? See, currently you have a government in Iran, which is the government of the mullahs and the ayatollahs, right? I mean, you have a president and all, but the president is not the all-powerful person in the country. It is Ayatollah Mr. Khamenei, who's the supreme leader. The president simply serves him. The president doesn't have the power, the kind of power Mr. Khamenei has. So Iran is a government of the mullahs and the ayatollahs. Okay, it's an Islamic government. It's Shia. It's a Shia country. Now, that's the country that is now at war with Israel. Israel started it all, you could say, right? By launching strikes, decapitation strikes on the Iranian government, higher authorities, higher leadership, as well as nuclear sites and military installations. And Iran has been forced to retaliate. Now, let's say there's a regime change in Iran, in Tehran, the current government is overthrown, and a democratic government comes to power. What does it mean that a democratic government comes to power? It means a pro-US government comes to power. So then what happens? What will happen then? Well, all you have to ask yourself is, what happened when there was the last time there was a pro-US government in Iran? That was the regime of the Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi. He was a US puppet. He was very strongly pro-US. Tehran was a US vassal at the time. And in 1965, when India and Pakistan went to war, they supported Pakistan. They supported Pakistan not just in words, but in actions. They allowed Pakistan to fly their fighter aircraft and land those aircraft on Iranian air bases so that India would not destroy them, and so on and so forth. They supported Pakistan. So if today a pro-US democratic government comes to power in Iran, what will happen is that you will have two Pakistans to your west. Not just West Pakistan, but also Iran, which will be pro-US. So we will lose whatever access we have to Chabahar port, or maybe it will continue to exist in name, but for all means and purposes, for all intents and purposes, we will not really be able to use it much. Okay, so this will also affect the Balochistan liberation movement, which will be crushed from Iran, and so on. So this will be a tremendous setback for India. We have reasonably good relations with the government in Tehran today. If a pro-US government comes to power in Tehran, it will be a big setback for us. There will be anti-India, just like the Mohammed Yunus regime is anti-India. So East Pakistan, West Pakistan, the way they are anti-India, even Tehran will be anti-India. And this is what these Indian geopolitical analysts don't understand. There are very intelligent Indian geopolitical analysts who are all supporting the US and Israel war on Tehran. They seem to not understand what the repercussions of this will be if there's a regime change in Tehran. It will be terrible for India. India will be isolated in the region. We have been talking about isolating Pakistan. We will become isolated in the region. Russia will face a setback. China will also face a setback, but they'll manage. So it will be terrible for India if this happens. Abhishek, welcome to the membership and thank you so much for becoming a member. Sharma says Indians mostly eat carbs like rice, lentils, and wheat. Very little meat or eggs. Yet our health is declining. On average, we are getting shorter. So why is there still an obsession with being pure veg? It's because of cultural and civilizational reasons. Our culture has always regarded non-violence as the ideal state of being. So as far as possible, don't indulge in cruelty, even by proxy, and don't harm any living being. That's been the ideal. So that's the ideal state of existence for a person who follows dharma. Of course, we have had exceptions in this. I mean, kings and warriors, the people of the warrior class, they would usually eat meat, and it depends on the occupation you would have. So if you're a warrior or if you're somebody who is into heavy physical labor, you would typically, historically, Indians of who engaged in those professions would have eaten meat, no question about that. So the Kshatriyas would have eaten meat, and the people who engaged in heavy physical labor would eat meat. And in some parts of India, certain kinds of meat are not regarded as meat. For example, in Bengal, they regard fish as being vegetarian and so on. But if you look at overall India today, like you're saying, Mr. Sharma, yes, Indians eat what I call a starvation diet. So the British occupied India for 2.5 centuries, and they systematically starved India by unleashing famine after famine, artificial famine after artificial famine on India. Because of which Indians had to really change and modify their diet to what you call a starvation diet, just to somehow barely survive. So it was all based heavily on carbohydrates, and this messed up the Indian genetics and much more. Indians have a much higher prevalence of diabetes, for example, than the rest of the world. Because of the consequences of 2.5 centuries of artificially engineered starvation by the British. So today, Indians think that this starvation diet that we've had to follow for 2.5 centuries, it is our tradition. So our diets, starting from morning breakfast, it's all carbs, idlis and dosas and whatnot. Otherwise, it is puffed rice, pohas, and potato based stuff and all. So you start from the morning breakfast full of carbs. Your lunch is full of carbs. Your dinner is full of carbs. Your snacks are full of carbs and sugar, and that's it. Most Indians don't eat any protein, and some Indians they labor under the delusion that dals and lentils and all, they will give you sufficient protein. They will give you sufficient protein, but they will give you an overload of carbs along with the sufficient protein. So if you want 100 grams of protein, so let's say you get it from paneer. It comes with a certain amount of calories and fats. But if you want 100 grams of protein from, let's say, pink dal or something, you will get a tremendous carb dose with that. There's no way of getting clean, low fat, low carb protein without being a non-vegetarian. So that's the dilemma that vegetarians face, what to do about it. We are vegetarian. We don't want to, cause any harm, any pain, any suffering to living beings. So we have decided to be vegetarian. Now, what do we do? Now, well, that's a question I can't answer. If you really want clean, lean protein without an overload of carbohydrates, the only way you do it is either by going down the route of paneer, which has a lot of fat, or by eating meat. That's the solution. There is no other clean solution. You can get your 150 grams of protein if you want per day as a vegetarian, but you will get a tremendous overload of carbs with that. That's the deal. Okay, NTN 888 says, how tangible is BRICS? Tangible. How tangible is BRICS? What is my opinion on BRICS currency? Is multipolar India hurdle to this currency? How tangible? I'm not sure what you mean by tangible. Tangible means something you can touch. So you see this thing here? I can touch it. This is tangible. It's tangible. See? Tangible. I can touch it. That's what the word tangible means. BRICS is an economic coalition of nations. It's not something you can touch. It's not tangible. Right? Just like the EU is not tangible, or NATO is not tangible, or the UN is not tangible. It has buildings and all, but it's an abstract idea, isn't it? So I don't know what you mean by tangible. But how how seriously should we take BRICS? How viable is BRICS? If that's what you're asking, how how impactful can BRICS be? If that's what you're asking, it will have a moderate impact because it is not an alliance; it is a coalition. It's not an official alliance that is treaty based, in which we have very clear uh, clauses and proper charters of what the alliance entails. There's none of that. So it's an alliance of convenience. It's an economic. It's a coalition of convenience. It's a coalition, economic coalition, and there is no common currency. And a nation like India will not want a common currency because see, otherwise, what happens is like what happened in the EU. In the EU, you have a current common currency, the euro, which is nothing but a a proxy for the Deutsche Mark. So it's Germany that's taken over Europe through the through the euro, which is nothing but a continuation in a different name of the Deutsche Mark. Now, if you have a BRICS currency, it will be dominated by China, not even by Russia, right? Because India is the larger economy compared to Russia, but China is way bigger than India. So China will dominate the BRICS currency, and they will control, be the controlling factor behind it. India will never want that. India will never allow that. So if there's a proposal for a BRICS currency, India will say we are not participating in that, and that kills the whole matter, right? So India is not a multipolar nation. India is a multi-aligned nation, and India has its own very strong interests. And we are unwilling to subordinate our interests to those of China. And that's why a BRICS currency is not going to happen. So I hope I answered your questions, sir. Shubham Dubey says, what are the current scientific possibilities for uncovering and understanding multidimensional reality within the universe? Begin exploring them. What are the current scientific possibilities for uncovering and understanding multidimensional reality? Well, first of all, you have to ask yourself, does the universe have a multidimensional reality? We are aware of 4 dimensions: length, breadth, height. Yeah, length, breadth, height, you know, and time. These are the 4 dimensions we can visualize, we can see, experience, either directly or somewhat vaguely. Time is somewhat vague, but we do experience the passage of time. So we have 4 dimensions that we are familiar with. 3 are very concrete, 1 is kind of vague. We experience its passage. Do we have more dimensions? Do we have evidence of a 5th dimension, 6th dimension, 10 dimensions, 11 dimensions, 26 dimensions? Do we have evidence of that? Zero. Absolutely zero evidence of that. So first, if you want to uncover and understand multidimensional reality, you have to find evidence for at least one more dimension, and that currently doesn't exist. How would you find the evidence for an extra dimension, for let's say a 5th dimension, as in the Kaluza-Klein theory, for example? Well, one of the possibilities is that if there are more dimensions, those are super compactified dimensions, extremely small, curled up, such that and so small that we can't experience them. So for that, we would need to be to uncover if such dimensions, if they potentially exist. You would need to be able to explore the ultra microscopic world, and we have limitations in that. We have electron microscopes, and we have various probes that we can use to probe the world at the quantum scale. But even at the quantum scale, we haven't uncovered any existence of extra dimensions. We've even been able to do deep inelastic scattering, which is the probing of the internal structure of nucleons, partons, and stuff, and still we haven't uncovered extra dimensions. So as far as we know, there are no extra dimensions. The multidimensional blah 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 that is spoken about by string theorists. So in string theory, first of all, we have something called Kaluza-Klein theory, which was proposed in the 1920s, 30s, and it was a significant theoretical breakthrough of some kind in kind of attempting to unify gravity with electromagnetism. Yeah. And then string theory talks about 10-dimensional space-time, 11-dimensional space-time. Bosonic string theory talks about 26 dimensions and all that. But where's the evidence? Zero. So how do you possibly find new dimensions by probing the ultra microscopic world, the quantum domain, even deeper. But that's really, really, really difficult because you need extremely high energies to do that. And the highest energies we have as of now are found in the heart of the Large Hadron Collider in Geneva, Switzerland. And that's not given us any breakthroughs in this direction. All right, sir. Nanda Kishore says, no question. Oh, well, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Very nice of you. Appreciate it. Govind says, do you think the US will give F-22 Raptor to Israel? Not even to Israel. I doubt it. That's not to be given to anybody, not even to Israel. Rashikuddin says, how did you start this YouTube channel and grow audience? Look, that's not a question about geopolitics, history, or current affairs. It's a historical question, but it's just four-year-old history. I started the channel because I had something to say. I thought, let's say something. And then it turned out that people wanted to hear what I had to say. And so I continued. And that's how it happened. And the audience grew itself. Okay. Rahul says, given recent events, can we now say that the Cold War never ended, was only paused, and it's now back in full swing? No, the Cold War ended with a US victory. The 20th century Cold War ended properly. It ended with a US victory. It ended with the dissolution, permanent dissolution of the USSR, which was a comprehensive US political victory without the need for military force. That was a definitive end to the Cold War. That happened in what? 1990, let's say, 1991. And it went on, this state of affairs, this unipolar state of affairs went on until the year 2007, 2008, which is what? Which is at least about 20 years, which is about 20 years roughly. So you had a roughly 20-year period, and China started showing its true face around 2012. So you had a roughly 21-year period in which there was just one superpower, the US, the sole superpower. And there was no Cold War for 20 years because the reason for the Cold War was gone. Russia was on its knees. And the new Cold War, the one we are in now, has just started recently. The first seeds, the first evidence of that was visible during Trump's first presidency. It continued during Biden's presidency, and now we are seeing a full-blown Cold War. So this is Cold War 2.0. It's not a continuation of the old Cold War. This is the new Cold War. And over here, the dominant actor is the US, and it's aimed primarily at China and secondarily at Russia and whoever else. Govind says, how do you think the US will contain the situation after Iran potentially tests a nuclear weapon? All you have to ask yourself is, how has the US responded to something like this in the past? So when did we have something like this in the past? It's when North Korea tested nuclear weapons. How did the US respond? Nothing much. Imposition of sanctions, but no military action. Right? So if Iran tests a nuclear weapon, I would expect that there will be the imposition of all kinds of sanctions on Iran beyond what you already have. And that would be about it. It will be very dangerous to take any military action against a nation that has nuclear weapons and also has tremendously good ballistic missiles. Right? So it would definitely cause Iran to be isolated globally. It may also come under pressure from its own allies, which is China and Russia. Possibly, at least lip service pressure will be imposed by Russia and China. And it would impact Russia more than China because it would open up a new nuclear front for Russia, actually. So Russia will not be very pleased. But if Iran feels that it has no choice, then it may test a nuclear weapon. And what would the US do? I think it will impose sanctions. Beyond that, it can't do much more, in my opinion. It's very dangerous. It's very ill-advised to launch a to launch a military operation on a nuclear power with the proven ability to deliver warheads and to puncture the Iron Dome. Oh, absolutely. You can't mess with that. Vijay Vicky says, why did Buddhism lose to Hinduism on the subcontinent? That's a long, long history. It changes. Things change. There was a time when Jainism was a very dominant dharmic path in the subcontinent. Eventually, things changed. I think one of the major reasons, is the life and career of Adi Shankaracharya. He did a lot to revive uh, the older, the older schools of thought, Vedanta, etc. So I think it was one man who brought what we call Hinduism back. Even though Buddhism, Hinduism, it's all part of the same dharmic umbrella, but different worldviews, slightly differing worldviews, and slightly different philosophical outlooks. So it's because of, I would say, Adi Shankaracharya that this transformation happened. Govind says, what's the new method of strikes that Iran is claiming it used for strikes against Israel? New method of strikes. Is there one? They've used, what Iran has done is that they've used saturation attacks on Israel. A saturation attack is it gives you mathematical certainty of hitting some targets. So let's say, so we know that Israel has this aerial defense system called the Iron Dome system, right? Very expensive arrow rockets and whatever else rockets that are used to target incoming threats. Now, let's say the Iron Dome system is 1,000 missiles, defensive missiles. So all you have to do is to launch 1,001 missiles at the Iron Dome, and there's a guarantee that at least one missile will hit its target. And of course, the interception accuracy is never 100%, so you will have more missiles that will hit the targets. And the Iron Dome obviously will not all be used at the same time, so you can use strike packages of, let's say, 100 missiles at a time at a city, and then there's almost 100% guarantee that a few of them will slip through. So I think what Iran is doing, it's using saturation strikes on Israel. And what it is also doing is that, it's using a lot of its old slow moving ballistic missiles, but slipping in a few hypersonics in between, which is why the hypersonics, you can clearly see the difference in their speed and all that, and they're able to get through the defenses. So that's what Iran has been doing the past 3-4 days. Zishan says, do you think Israel will be able to get the US involved in the Iran war? Have you seen General Wesley Clark video of invading 7 countries? Yeah, with Iran being the last. Netanyahu openly stated his intentions on Fox News. I have seen that video from 2007 or wherever it was, that the US had a hit list of 7 countries that would be invaded. Just because we'll do it. And Iran is one of those. Iran may be the last of those. The question is, will Israel be able to get the US involved in this war? Well, I'm sure there are various ways of getting the US involved in the war. Okay? I will not utter those words here because those are nasty ways. But yeah, Israel, if it wants, it can get involved. It can get the US involved in the war. See, one of the best ways to do it is to do a false flag operation. Okay, this is all theoretical. I'm not saying anybody's planning to do it. I'm saying theoretically, completely hypothetically, completely fictitious scenario. Let's say I want to get my ally involved in the war. So I will launch a false flag attack on my ally's warship and claim it was done by the other guy. And that's how the ally gets involved in the war. So that is one completely hypothetical, fictitious scenario in which you can plausibly get your ally involved in the war, even though the ally may perhaps have been reluctant to get involved. And once something starts, it's very hard to stop it. Right? The fog of war takes over, like Clausewitz would have said. So yeah, we are in a very dangerous situation right now. Multiple actors all want different things. The question is, what does each actor want? What does Iran want? What does Israel want? What does the US want? Does the US actually want the destruction of Iran and a regime change? And at what cost, if yes? The question also is, what does Israel want? Does it want a permanent end to the regime in Tehran, a regime change, before Iran goes nuclear? And what's the cost it's willing to absorb for this to happen? And is it willing to drag its ally into the war through various means, and so on? So I think it's possible, if Israel really wants to get the US involved in this war. That would be a major conflagration in which you have a major regional war involving multiple actors. beyond Iran, Israel, and the US. Multiple actors will be involved in that case. Okay, Jay Tiwari says, what if Pakistan collapses? Is India ready? India is ready. All you have to do is to seal the border. That's it. Somebody tries to come this side, deal with them. That's all you have to do. Beyond that, nothing will happen. I'll tell you why nothing will happen. The big worry that people have is, what about those nuclear weapons? Do we want those nuclear weapons falling into the hands of unwanted people? They're already in the hands of unwanted people. They're already in the hands of terrorists. The question is, what happens if the Pakistani military regime falls? What happens? Don't worry, the US will take care of it. Those nuclear weapons belong to the US. Those are not Pakistani nuclear weapons. Those are weapons the US has placed on Pakistan soil to deal with, to counterbalance India as well as potentially China and Iran, but mainly India. So if the Pakistan regime collapses, the Americans will do a mop-up operation very rapidly. They are already in control of the Noor Khan Air Base. Pakistani officers and personnel are not allowed there. So it's very clear that these nuclear weapons that Pakistan supposedly has are American nuclear weapons. In 1998, after India tested 5 nuclear weapons, how was Pakistan able to so quickly on demand test 5 or whatever nuclear weapons? Because they were ready, because those were American nuclear weapons, and the Americans facilitated those so-called tests. So we did not worry about the nuclear threat. And if Pakistan collapses, all we have to do is to secure our borders. That's all. And maybe do something more beyond that. That's up to the government of India. Vishal says, do you think Iran may have lost the capability to enrich uranium further after Israeli strikes? I doubt it. Some of it may have been affected, but not all of it. So the Iranians did hit the Natanz side, the Fordoz side, and so on. But I think that's not all, right? I think Iran still has more capability to enrich uranium. So I don't think Iran has lost all of its capability to enrich uranium. I think they will now double down on enriching uranium beyond 60%. I think in the next 3 months, they may have a sufficiently reasonably large stockpile of 90% plus enriched uranium. It makes sense for them to have it if they feel that there is an existential threat to their nation, which there probably is. So I think they'll be able to do it. Spade says, Indian Army parade versus US Army parade. Yes, we all saw that. We all saw Trump's birthday military parade. It was an embarrassment. It was seriously an embarrassment. Sad to see that. He was expecting something like what Kim Jong-un would have, but what ended up was something very different. What he ended up having was something very different, very embarrassing. Ritvik Patnaik says, Dr. Ritvik Patnaik, why is Russia not that powerful today like before? It's because of the past 30 years of history. Whatever happened since 1991, Russia was beggared by Boris Yeltsin. It was sold off piecemeal to a bunch of oligarchs who proceeded to deliberately destroy the Russian economy and the Russian industrial capacity. And Putin had to rebuild it step by step, brick by brick over decades. And he's still in the process of doing it. That's why. Project Smiling Buddha. I heard right-wing YouTubers going gaga over F35. I wonder who those gentlemen and ladies are. They say it is technically so superior that we can ignore all other aspects like kill switch, etc. I don't know who these right-wing YouTubers could or could not be. Okay, I am not aware of these people. I'm just saying that if these highly learned people are saying the F35 is fantastic, one would want to look into the sources of their income. What are the income streams? Who's paying them to say this? Okay. The F35 is dangerous. If we acquire it, it will be a huger liability than the Starlink. Okay. The F35 will come with kill switches. It will come with spyware. It will come with backdoors. It will completely compromise India's national security. And when we will need it, when the hour will come, when we actually need it, it won't perform. Especially if it goes counter to American interests. We should not acquire this flying trash can, the F-35. And if some YouTubers are saying we should, then I hardly question why they are saying this and who is paying them to say this. I'm talking about YouTubers, whoever they may be. Okay, I don't know who is saying this or who is not saying it. I'm just saying big question mark about these people. So either they are seriously deficient in their analysis, or they are motivated by something beyond their intellect, which could be financial motivations, possibly. Feminist Slayer says, just like strong nations prepare for war or sanctions, even during peaceful times, should individuals also prepare for personal crisis during good times? Absolutely. Absolutely. How do you do that? By investing in savings, and by having, yeah, it's, see, what you do as an individual, you can't obviously build an army, you can't have nuclear weapons and so on. But what you can do is you can have a strong finances. So during peacetime, when everything is fine, save money, invest money wisely, make your money work for you, and have different forms of investment. Some of it could be, let's say, in real estate, some of it could be in stocks and bonds and shares, some of it could be in precious metals, some of it could be in something else, and so on and so forth. So that if someday something goes wrong, you have multiple recourses, and you're financially fine to tide over whatever bad times and however long they may last. So yes, you can learn a lot from the study of geopolitics in personal life. Anonymous scientist says, how would India have been today if Nehru had accepted Kennedy's offer to help India detonate a nuclear device and join the UN Security Council? Well, it would have gone two ways, or maybe three ways. First, India could have become a complete US vassal if the leader would have been less than sufficiently intelligent, right? Complete US vassal. So imagine a larger Pakistan in some way. Maybe India could have been like that. And then India could have been crippled the way Japan is being crippled today, or South Korea. So India's population would have been prosperous, but India's national interests, national security, etc., would have gone to the dogs. Complete US vassal, a nation that exists only to serve the master. That could have happened. Or if we had a sufficiently intelligent leader, bright leader, with a Machiavellian Chanakyan mindset, then we would have balanced the whole world against each other, and we would have used this to our advantage. We would have become a nuclear weapons power. We would have maintained sufficient friendship, but not too much friendship with the US. We would never have become a proper ally. We would have kept them at an arm's distance, but also kept them sufficiently close so that they feel like their investment is good, while also being multi-aligned with the rest of the world. We would have welcomed US investment and so on, the way China did, for example, right? So it would have depended on the kind of leadership we had. And obviously, if Mr. Nehru had been the leader, it would have gone in a specific way, which I suppose people can think about, but I will not need to spell it out. Priyavrat Bharadwaj says, how to counter the Chinese electronics market? MSEE, semiconductor, BTech, EEE, how to start my own manufacturing in India, run my own tech blog greatly. How to counter the Chinese electronics market? Well, we need to have our own research and development. We need to develop our own technologies. We need to do it, if required, from scratch. We need to do it by possibly having the West invest in India and transfer some technology that we can then build upon. There's a multiplicity of ways in which to do it, but it needs to be done. And the question you have to ask yourself is, how did the Chinese build up their electronics manufacturing capability? There was a time when they had zero electronics manufacturing capability. How did they do it? So by studying how the Chinese did it, and by adapting that to a certain extent, because it won't work exactly the way it worked then for them, it won't work the same way for us. We'll have to do it somewhat differently, because today the West doesn't want India to rise like the next China. So they will be very wary of sharing technology, certain kinds of technology, and so on. So we'll have to do it differently, but we can certainly take the Chinese model as an example of how things are done, and we can adapt that to our circumstances. Now, how to start your own manufacturing in India? First of all, you need investment. You need somebody to fund you. In case you have deep pockets, well, then you can take the risk and use some of your own funding. Otherwise, you need to be able to attract the right kind of investment. For that, you have to show the right business plan and show that you have the know-how and so on and so forth to make it work, and so on. And then you have to acquire land and set up the manufacturing plant, and somehow make it profitable while also navigating the red tape and the business environment in India. It's pretty difficult, but people can do it. Many people are doing it. So yeah, that's kind of how it works. um, and if that's something you're considering seriously, then I would wish you all the best, sir. Echo says, why is veto power crucial to India? Without it, can India truly influence global decisions or remain a passive participant in a system shaped by others? Let me explain what veto power is. In the United Nations, veto power means you have the five permanent members of the UN Security Council, and there's a decision being made, and let's say four of them are in favor of the decision, but the fifth one says it's against my interests, so I will veto it. That means that even if just one member says no, that thing can't go forward. That's a veto power. Okay. Now, India obviously is not a permanent member. India doesn't have the veto power. The question is, how does India get the veto power? Because that can make you truly influential. You can truly influence global decisions. Otherwise, you are a less active participant, not a passive participant, but a less active participant. So the question is, how does one acquire the veto power? One acquires the veto power, my friends, by becoming so powerful that even without the UN Security Council veto power, through your actions in the world, you can veto things. For that, you need a tremendous economic might, and you also need military might that can stop things in the world. By gaining real world veto power of actually stopping things from happening in the world, then you will get actual the United Nations veto power, because then it will make sense for them to give it to you. Otherwise, you could provoke a big conflict. So that's how you get veto power. Okay, I'm gonna do this for another 10-15 minutes and then we will be done. Let me take the remaining questions. Valiant Prince says, given AI's rapid rise, I believe the best salary to work our jobs in 10 years will be in AI, quantitative trading, bioinformatives, and intellectual property law. Am I being too harsh for raising my child this way, fearing a hyper competitive future? No. You're not being too harsh raising a child this way. You are being practical. You have some understanding of the way, of the direction the world is going in. The future is not going to be hyper competitive, but it's going to exclude a lot of people. A lot of people are going to be left on the wayside. Those who don't adopt the technology, the AI technology. So the whole world is going to be AI enabled. AI will be embedded in everything eventually. So you have to be an early adopter, and you have to embrace AI wholesale in everything you do. If you do that, you won't, first of all, be left behind. Secondly, you'll be at the forefront of whatever happens. So whatever work, whatever business you're in, whatever industry you're in today, whatever work you do, if you can find a way to incorporate AI into your workflow, into your processes, into your business, into your SOPs, etc. If you can make AI an integral part of that, and if you stay abreast of what's happening in AI, of all the latest developments, then you will be unstoppable. So what you're saying makes sense. Yeah, the best jobs in 10 years will be all AI dominated jobs. Whatever industry, whatever domain they are in, it's going to be deeply interconnected with AI. So you've got to raise your kids that way. The future is going to be exactly like that. And those who don't adopt AI today, well, it'll be too late for them to adopt it later. Jainam says, I saw a podcast where the host claimed Aryabhatta was targeted by Hindus in the past. Pandits destroyed his books due to his scientific thinking. What can I say? This is nonsense. Nonsense. Anybody can do a podcast today, right? This is a democratic world. All you need is a cell phone, and you can do a podcast. So there's so much noise today. The signal to noise ratio is completely skewed, and anybody can come and make any claim. So my question to you is, sir, why are you wasting your time watching the podcasts? Please don't. Okay, so the Strummer says, reports say that China is faking population numbers. What's my view? I have no view about this. How do I know what's really happening in China? I'll go by the official reports because I have no other way of knowing what's happening. There's always a possibility that something is being exaggerated or built up or cut down, artificially. But eventually the truth comes out over time. So we'll see. Dr. Ritvik Patnaik says, after the creation of Bangladesh and the surrender of 93,000 troops by Pakistan, why didn't we take Rangpur to solve chicken neck issue and Chattogram for sea route to the far east of India even after we won? That's a question the leaders of that time will have to answer, but they're not around to answer it today. I have no idea why. I think we are just too generous. Our leaders have shown, historically, they have shown that they are just too generous. They don't know what to do with a victory. They don't have the killer instinct, perhaps. Or maybe there are certain other coercive forces involved that we are not aware of. But whatever it is, it was a golden opportunity. We had won the military victory. We could have done whatever we wanted with the territory we had captured. And we ended up the way we are today. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. The world doesn't take India seriously to a large extent because of these things. That India, even after it wins, it fritters away all the advantage. Prashant says reverse discrimination lawsuits in US workforce. Thoughts? Reverse discrimination. What is reverse discrimination? So discrimination means the white people are targeting black people and discriminating against black people. So reverse discrimination means that white people are now claiming that there's too much discrimination against whites. Well, so the majority is being targeted by the minorities and being discriminated against by the so-called minorities. Well, that's going to be a feature of US society. A society where you have such fragmentation and such infighting and so on. Yeah, it's going to be an increasing, more and more visible feature of US society. What can I say? It's sad that the US has brought itself down to this level. Was once the greatest country in the world until the 1950s and 1960s. And then the decline started, and it's still declining. I don't know where it ends, really. Sally says, thoughts on recent exploration at Dwarka outcome. I haven't seen any news, any reports about it. Whatever is happening is pretty gradual, incremental work. Now, no big discovery has come out of Dwarka, so I'm not aware of any outcome whatsoever. But at least something is being done, so I'm happy to see that. Yati says, if we had our own Indian judiciary system at the time of the Mahabharata, how would the Supreme Court have solved the conflict between the Pandavas and the Kauravas? I'm so glad we did not have this judiciary system during the time of the Mahabharata. We had our own judiciary, our own form of solving disputes, which was typically, at that time there were two kingdoms, right? A judicial system can exist only inside a kingdom. At that time, Bharatvarsh was not under a single emperor, like it was during the time of Chandragupta Maurya or Ashok or Kanishka or the Gupta emperors, etc. When you have a whole subcontinent unified under a single emperor and single empire, then you have a unified judicial system, whatever form it takes. But during the Mahabharata time, we did not have a single empire. We had two sets of cousins fighting each other, and they had two separate kingdoms. So there would be no judicial system on top of that, right? Obviously, it doesn't make any sense. Think about it. Think critically, my friends. When you have two, let's say India and Pakistan are fighting. Do you think there will be a common judiciary that will tell India and Pakistan what to do? If, let's say, China and Japan are fighting, do you think there will be some common judiciary over China and Japan who will tell them what to do? There's no such thing. Similarly, when the Kauravas and the Pandavas were fighting each other and they were in conflict, there was no common judiciary. And I'm glad there was none. What happened was the right thing. It had to be solved the way it was solved. Zishan says, was the US Army 250th parade disappointing? Does this mean the US military is weaker than the world thought? It doesn't mean the US military is weak. First of all, was it disappointing? It was very embarrassing. It was very half-hearted. It was not serious and so on. It was very, embarrassing for the US. Does it mean the US military is weaker than the world thought? Look, the quality of a military is not to be gauged from the precision of its parade. Even a bunch of non-military people can be drilled to parade like the North Korean military. If you force them to parade every day under a proper drill sergeant for 6 months, they'll turn out superb. It doesn't mean they can fight. So the quality of a military is not to be judged from the quality of their parade turnouts. Okay, the US military is frighteningly powerful, way more powerful than people can imagine. So yeah, it was definitely disappointing, embarrassing, but it has no bearing on the quality of the US military. It probably was kind of a snub for Trump, actually. Trump is not, these aren't good days for Trump, not good days for him. Okay, Rahul says, what's my take on synthetic meats and the current state of such food technology? I think synthetic meats are a very dangerous thing. I don't know what is being put in that. And it's definitely unnatural. And if people really want to eat meat, then eat actual meat and do it ethically and as cruelty free as possible. But synthetic meats, I think there could be artificial and dangerous components in that. So I would say steer clear of synthetic meats. Amar Singh says, what if India in the future uses AI and quantum computers to develop jet engines at the earliest? Well, the jet engine problem is not a problem that will be solved with AI or quantum computing. It's a metallurgical problem. It's a materials science problem. Of course, you can you can design various kinds of materials and compounds, etc., and alloys, possibly using artificial intelligence. But then designing them in a computer simulation or having an AI design such things is very different from actually producing them, right? Because for that you need certain kinds of furnaces and things which require certain kinds of technologies. How do you grow a single crystal blade with multiple holes in it for cooling and all that? That AI is not enough for that, right? Otherwise I could do it with AI, but I need the machines and all that. The machines need machines that make them also. So it's a different kind of problem. Of course, we can certainly leverage AI and to the fullest extent possible, if that is on the cards. But at the end of the day, it will have to be manufactured in the physical world, and that is a whole different issue. Vishal, thank you very much, sir. Hardik Joshi says, why is Europe failing as a concept? Because it's an artificial concept, my dear friends. Europe is an artificial concept. I mean, we haven't opened the map today. Let's open the map. Europe is a racist concept. It's a fake concept. It's an artificial concept. Look at this continent. It's one single continent, and a tiny portion of that is what they call Europe. And it is attached to the rest of the continent, Eurasia. This concept that Europe is a separate entity is completely artificial and completely fake. It's a small component of Eurasia. The real powers in Eurasia are Russia, China, India. And Europe was propped up by the US for about 70, 80 years as a geopolitical experiment. The US was the dominant power in Western Europe. It has created these alliances, the EU and NATO. One is economic, one is military alliance. But historically, if you see the history of Europe, they have always been fighting each other. Constant warfare against each other with a dominating power, which was the Vatican. But constantly fighting each other. Constant warfare, constant strife, constant sectarian strife, constant ethnic strife, constant linguistic strife, constant strife. That's what the history of Europe actually is. You have to read history, study history for that. So Europe is simply reverting to its natural state now that the US is showing less interest, and the US is destabilizing Europe by forcing illegal immigration into Europe with the aim of reconfiguring the demography of Europe. So the reasons are the benevolent hand of the US, which is on top of everything, right? And the economy is dropping. Well, why does an economy drop? Tell me, why does an economy decline? The question you have to ask yourself is, what drives an economy? And the very simple answer is that it is energy that drives an economy. For an economy to thrive, you need copious amounts of cheap energy. And when that tap dries out, well, your economy will go into a recession. Simple. Spade says, Sar, what do you think the government can do about the judiciary? They've shown signs of corruption and even act against India's national interest at times. Well, I am not a judicial expert. I have no idea about the judiciary. I would say that the government will have to take some proper action. They've tried taking action in the past with the there was some constitutional amendment they had done, but the judiciary threw that out. So I think the government will have to find some other way of reforming the judiciary. Because in a democracy, if you want to call yourself a democracy, the judiciary has to come firmly under the ambit of the will of the people. It cannot be beyond the ambit of the will of the people. I think that's how a democracy is defined and how it works. So I think it is up to the elected government of the people of India to take the right action, whatever the most appropriate form of action would be. But it's up to them, and they have to do it. They've got to do it. Mr. Dot, thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Dr. Ritvik says, why is the US the number one ally of a small country, Israel? Well, we don't know. Maybe they love Israel very much. Maybe they love Judeo-Christian culture very much, and Judaism is the root of Christianity. Maybe that's a reason, or maybe there could be some other reason, possibly. Tanmay says, your views on Chhatrapati Sambhaji Maharaj and how his great life ended. Why people can't accept many bad things that happened in the past. They just deny. Well, I haven't studied the life and history of the Maratha Empire and their various great warrior kings. So I don't know the life history of Chhatrapati Sambhaji Maharaj in detail. But obviously his life ended with great cruelty done by Aurangzeb to him, with a great amount of pain and torture. And it is it makes your blood boil, obviously. Right? He was a great warrior, great man, and yeah, what this invader, this occupier of India did to him was beyond brutal. So I don't know why people can't accept that bad things have happened in the past. They have happened in the past, and we need to ensure that those are taught to us, and we ensure that that such things don't happen again in the future. Rashikuddin says, Iran claims it has weapons that are better than nuclear weapons. What are my thoughts? Well, if I ask myself what weapons can be better than nuclear weapons, the answer kind of frightens me. Okay, weapons that are more dangerous than nuclear weapons could be either chemical or biological weapons, which will have devastating effects of various kinds that are different from the devastation that is caused by a nuclear weapon. Now, I don't know if that's what they mean by that. Okay, Iran. Does it mean that they are claiming they have chemical or biological weapons? I don't know if it means that. So I don't know. First of all, I don't even know if they have claimed this. Secondly, if they have claimed this, I don't know what it means. So my answer is I have no idea what it means. I can't think of anything else beyond chemical and biological that is scarier than nuclear. Yeah, of course, you can have hypersonic missiles and you can strike a city, which can have the same effect as a nuclear weapon. But for that, you need 100 hypersonic missiles. But when it comes to nukes, you just need one. So I don't know what's better or more dangerous than nuclear. Not sure. Sharma says, P.N. Oak said that Rome was named after Lord Ram, and Ravenna was named after Ravan, and they worshipped Hindu gods in Europe. Well, P.N. Oak has made all kinds of claims. And he has also made spurious claims, like some kind of book, some kind of fictitious poem written about King Vikramaditya by the Arabs, of which there is no evidence at all. So P.N. Oak is not regarded as a reliable historical source. That's what I need to caution you all about. Okay, he has made all kinds of claims. Much of these claims there's no evidence for them. Spade says the greatest Hindu king in recorded history is Vikramaditya, right? His kingdom reached Russia, right? Could you share some facts about him? I don't know any facts about him. He's regarded as a mythical legendary king, which I am sure is incorrect. But we don't have any hard evidence about his kingdom, his life, and so on and so forth, mostly because our historians and archaeologists have not put in enough effort to find out the truth. They're just content to dismiss him as a legendary king. So I don't know what the deal is. Kingdom reached Russia. I'm not sure about that. What facts? I don't know the facts. Sorry. Mr. Dot says, will the Indian cities infrastructure improve and how? Indian cities can have their infrastructure improve drastically if India cracks down on corruption. That's the simple answer I can give you. We can have tremendous cities in the world, in the country. Tremendous world-class cities. Tremendous. We can have them in India. Big, beautiful cities. But only if we crack down on corruption. We need a war on corruption. If we do that, the cities will become completely transformed in India. Completely transformed. There'll be no more slums full of Rohingyas and Bangladeshis and cookies and Pakistanis. There'll be no open sewers if they still exist. There'll be no floods every time there's a 5-minute rainfall. Everything will change if we crack down on corruption. So where is India's war on corruption? When it happens, things will change. Aditya Pandey, thank you very much, sir. Aditya ji, thank you. Babyface says, what are the chances of Air India crash being a sabotage? PSU geostrategy episodes are fantastic. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. I'm glad you like those. What are the chances of Air India crash being a sabotage? See, this is an ongoing investigation. I would not want to make any statements about this right now. I clearly have said this. I did a segment on this during one of my geostrategy episodes, in which I said that this is most likely, it looks like it's most likely a simultaneous dual engine failure. Now, I have some kind of understanding of aviation. I am by no means a professional, but I have some understanding because of my lifelong interest in it. So it looks like this was a simultaneous dual engine failure, which is incredibly rare and doesn't make any sense for this to happen. And now it looks like there's more evidence coming out that kind of indicates it's a simultaneous dual engine failure. Now, what can cause that? Bird strikes? Doesn't look like there was any bird strike. What else? Fuel contamination? Oh, that's very dangerous and very fishy. So I don't know at this point in time what it was. I think the government needs to do a proper investigation. The cockpit flight recorder needs to be analyzed. The cockpit voice recorder, the flight, the black box, all of that needs to be analyzed. The actual physical remains of the aircraft and whatever else need to be analyzed. And we need to find out what happened. We need to get to the bottom of this. Until this happens, I would rather not comment about whether this could be a sabotage or not. I think at this point in time, I think every possibility has to be taken seriously. That's all I'll say. Geopolitical Dubey says, what are my thoughts on Abhijit Iyer Mitra? I think he's a fantastic guy. Very, very nice guy. Very intelligent, very bright. Very entertaining, very funny. Very well read. Very scholarly, and so on. Aditya Pandey says, recommend books. Satya myth. Recommend books and sources to prove Satya myth. Read the book by Dr. Meenakshi Jain about Sati. That's the only book you need. Go to Amazon.com and okay, let me spoon feed you. Go to Amazon.com or Flipkart.com or whatever your favorite website is and type this: Meenakshi Jain Sati with spaces in between. Buy that book, read it. That's the book you need. All right? All right. Mohammed Vishnu from Indonesia. Definitely a viewer of mine. Okay, Mohammed Vishnu says, can India become US sanction proof? Not anytime soon. Not anytime soon, because we are connected to the global economy, which is dominated by the US. The global economy is denominated in the US dollar. It's the global reserve currency. Most transactions happen in that currency. And the entire global financial system that we are connected to, the SWIFT system, and so on and so forth, everything, it's all dominated by the US. All the supply chains that we have that bring in stuff to India are dominated by the US. So not anytime soon. We're not going to be sanction proof anytime soon. It'll take time. Minimum 20-30 years. Who knows? Khajoro Bitarthon says, if Iran falls like Syria, will the whole of West Asia be a US fiefdom with Turkey and Greater Israel as its liege lords? Will they then divorce Israel? Will US gobble up the rimland and push it further till they whatever? Well, you bring out Mr. Mackinder and his theory. Well, a long time ago in an episode of the Indian Interest, I believe, I had spoken about the heartland rimland theory of Mackinder, right? And and it says that the heartland of Asia is the historical USSR, which is presently Russia, and parts of China, Mongolia, etc. And that's where all the resources are. And whoever dominates the heartland dominates the world island. And rimland nations like India are not in a position to dominate, and so on and so forth. That's a theory, right? So if Iran falls like Syria, definitely the whole of West Asia will become a US fiefdom. Uh, Israel will be the major liege lord in the region. Turkey will not be very pleased with this, but Turkey will try and make the best of what it can. Turkey is an ever grasping country. Um, who will divorce Israel? The US. The US will never divorce Israel. Turkey has a love-hate relationship with Israel that will continue. If Iran falls, will the US gobble up the rimland? Well, a large part of the rimland goes to the US if the US can take over Iran. And then they would like to make further inroads into the Caucasus region, into the Middle East region is done already. Central Asia also, you can push from Iran and so on. So yeah, it'll be a great decisive uh, um, victory of sorts for the US, but not the final victory. The final victory means you get the heartland, and that will be a different, longer term project. Knowledge Camp, thank you very much, sir or ma'am. Thank you so much. NTN 888 says, why are people still obsessed with oil? Haven't we moved on? Minerals is the new oil. Hype was years ago. Well, if you look at the world, look at transportation, look at everything, look at the major sources of energy, it's all oil, it's all fossil fuels. We're trying to move to lithium. We're trying to move to other exotic sources and green energy and so on and so forth. But the vast majority of energy still comes from fossil fuels and oil. Can you have an F-35 flying with on lithium? Can you have a Boeing 747 or an Airbus 380 flying on lithium? Can you have a super tanker transporting 1,000 tons of goods from one continent to another on lithium? It's all still based on fossil fuels. Then people aren't obsessed with oil. People are practical and pragmatic and realistic. Most of the world's energy resources are still based on fossil fuels, mainly oil. Why, Jay Tiwari says, why is India building ports and SATs in the Indian Ocean region in Africa? If you invest in ports, you get to control those ports, which means that you can control various spokes and hubs in the various supply chains. So that's an advantage that you have. Imagine if China controls all the ports, then what will you do? Then you will be at their mercy. They can cut things off for you. But if you control ports, like for example, the Adani Group controls the Haifa port in Israel, well, that's a great advantage for us, and so on. So we need to build ports. We need to build our own infrastructure in the region, in Africa, East Africa, in the Indian Ocean region, and so on and so forth. We need to have our own listening stations. We need to have our own radar stations, possibly dual-use military bases, and so on and so forth. That's infrastructure you own and you operate. So it's an advantage for you. Nilay Srivastav, thank you very much, sir, for becoming a member. Thank you. Geopolitical Dubai, thank you so much. Rush Good, thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir. Pre-LTP says, why people allow politicians after independence to keep doing blunders? Why the 97% who voted to make Pakistan under Sharia law were allowed to stay in India? First of all, the people had no say. See, you have to understand how political power works. Political power, like Mao Zedong said, flows from the barrel of a gun. It also flows from the lathi that the policeman holds. People had no say in what politicians could or could not do. The politicians controlled everything. They controlled the means of violence. They controlled the means of everything else. That's how they controlled the country. And they kept on doing blunder after blunder because the people had no choice. What would the people have done? Do you remember in the 1960s or something, 5,000 Hindu sadhus went to the Lok Sabha, went to parliament to demonstrate against cow slaughter? What happened to them? They were shot. Are you aware of that? The massacre of Hindu sadhus outside Parliament House, sometime in the 1950s. They tried to do something about the state of our country. What happened? They were massacred. So that's how the world works. And so on and so forth about the 97% who voted to make Pakistan and they stayed in India. Well, yeah. Aradhya Pandit says Jews were never persecuted in India. Well, yeah, I have no idea what you're writing. Welcome every religion, but Israel is still converting tribals, and same with China. Will our ideology be a cost paid by Indians? Yeah, we will have to take care of our national interests. Okay, my point is what I've been saying. Don't consider anybody to be your enemy, but don't consider anyone to be your unconditional friend. Everybody has their interests, and some of the interests will go against your interests. So be careful. And don't cry that we never hurt you, but you are hurting us. No, be practical, be realistic. The world is like this. So we have to take care of our interests. Our government is supposed to take care of our interests. If it's not doing it, please call them out. Okay, Slayer says, should I join the mafia, Ballu the gangster? Well, if Ballu the gangster appeals to you, please join his Ballu the gangster mafia. I'm just kidding, okay? Pratap says, is Iran's fall is not our interests. Why are we for Israel? I have never said that Iran's fall is in our interest. So I agree with you. And you what you say is makes sense. Iran's fall is not in our interest. We have nothing against Israel, but Iran should not fall. Otherwise, it's terrible for us. It's a disaster for us if there's a regime change in Tehran. Secret billionaire says, how would Chanakya seize power in today's India if he existed today and wanted to run India his way? What would it be his strategy, sir? Chanakya's strategy would not be a regime change operation like he did against the Nanda Empire. Chanakya's strategy would be to win elections. And once you win the election and reach the top position, you ensure you never leave. That would be his strategy. That is the way of Chanakya. Don't fight the system. Use the system to get what you want and then change the system if you can. And I assure you, Chanakya can. Chanakya is way greater than anybody who stands as a politician in India today. Avigyan says, you said earlier that the presidential system of government is better for India, but parliamentary government is part of basic structure of constitution. Can the government change it? I'm a big fan of memory power. My memory power is just okay. Anyhow, parliamentary government is part of the basic structure of the constitution. Can the government change it? I think only a constitutional expert can answer this question. I think it's very difficult, actually, from whatever I understand, for the government to change the so-called basic structure of the constitution. I'm not even sure what this basic structure of the constitution is. The constitution is a man-made document. It's supposed to be a living, breathing document that changes over time. And it doesn't, we are under no obligation to keep on obeying a document that was written about 80 years ago and not even ratified by the people of India. So I'm sure whenever there's a politician or a leader with sufficient willpower and fortitude, the change will happen. But yeah, we're going to have to pray for that person to appear. Harsha, thank you, first of all. Please tell your views on spirituality, on God, and also if you follow and practice any kind of spiritual practice in your daily life as well. Look, first of all, I thank you for your contribution, but I am not taking questions about anything except for geopolitics, history, or current affairs. But my views on spirituality, I think it's up to you. What kind of life you want to live, what kind of God you want to worship, gods, whatever. I am a believer. I'm obviously what can I say? My spirituality practice. I don't have any spirituality practice as such. I have the greatest of respect and reverence for our ancestral traditions, our dharmic traditions. So if I have any spirituality, it is that the utmost respect and reverence for our ancestral spiritual traditions, our culture, our civilizational path, the dharmic path, and all the gods and goddesses who come with that. Ujjwal Keshri says, will you join my conquest if I become a billionaire by 25? Also, do you have a will to come out of content creation and join the real cause? You become a billionaire? I'm with you, bro. Absolutely. Ankita says, I have this phobia of lagging behind when it comes to AI. Please say something for me, your suggestions. If you don't want to lag behind when it comes to AI, you will have to embrace AI in whatever profession or whatever it is that you do. Which means that, let's say you are, what hypothetical profession can I find? Let's say you are a chartered accountant and you have to do a lot of manual calculations and all for all your clients. Well, you could have, what you do is you'll have to learn a little bit of how software development is done. You need to understand the flow. You need to have a requirements document, then a design document, then you need to have code, then you need to have unit testing and integration testing, user acceptance testing in case of existing applications and all. Then you need to create, if you are a CA, you get your hands on something called Cursor. Then you need learn how to talk with AI, how to communicate with AI. You can also get Claude Code if you want inside Cursor, and then you create an application that does all of your calculations, all of your analysis, everything for you. And you just have to input the documents, and it'll give you everything. Then you can obviously supervise what it does, double check what it does, but it really acts as a force multiplier for you. So then instead of having 20 employees, you can just have 20 AI employees and spend a fraction of the cost. That sort of thing. So what you have to do if you are fearful of AI, you're afraid possibly because you don't understand it. See, what do we fear in the world? We fear darkness. Why do we fear darkness? Because darkness is the unknown. Similarly, when it comes to various technologies, we fear them because we don't understand them. So you have to take the time, you have to invest the time and the effort to learn things. Learn something that may be very new to you, something you've never experienced before, but you have to take the time to learn it. And then you have to take the time to incorporate it into whatever your profession is. That's what you do. So without knowing what exactly it is that you do, it's very hard for me to give specific details, but I give the example of a CA. You can replace all your employees with AI systems, AI agents, if you know how to use AI. So learn how to use AI. And you get all these courses online, You can spend a few hours every week or the next year and try and do things, and you learn. So that's what I can say. Learn. You have to learn it. You have to embrace it. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be difficult. It may be terrifying, but don't stop. Do it. All right. All the best, everybody. Govind says Iran asks the US to stop war with Israel. What will be the result of this? Do you think Iran will agree to stop enriching uranium for nuclear weapons, or is this a delaying tactic for testing a nuke? I think Iran, if it has any sense, will enrich sufficient uranium to at least be a threshold state, because otherwise you have an existential threat, right? Asking the US to stop the war will serve no purpose. Israel will do what Israel wants, and the US will support Israel. So I don't think Iran will agree to stop enriching uranium. It doesn't make sense for them to stop doing that. They will have to become a threshold state. I'm not sure if they will test nuclear weapons. I think there's a 35% probability they will do it in the next 1 year, which is not a very high probability. It's not very low either. It depends on various factors on how their threat perception is, on whether Israel continues targeting Iran and so on and so forth. So I think it makes sense for Iran to not stop enriching uranium. I think it makes sense for them to have a stockpile of at least 10 warheads worth of 90% plus enriched uranium, which is weapons grade uranium. That's what I think Iran will have to do. I'm not recommending that. I'm just saying that it makes sense for a nation in their position, in their circumstances, to do that. Ajay Sharma says, are BSF, ASI, DRDO actually doing anything meaningful, or just running on legacy, budget, and bureaucracy? There's a mixture of both, I would say. The ASI, I have said that the ASI should be disbanded and a new professional organization needs to be created. Because, look, even there may be a lot of good people also possibly in the ASI. At least some may be good. But overall, the hierarchy and the bureaucracy is such that things won't be allowed to change. I'm sure there are good people. I think there are good people, fantastic people in every organization. But overall, the system, the architecture, the superstructure, the system, the bureaucracy, all of that is such that things don't change. And a lot of the old practices that have been going on forever, which are not necessarily great, will continue. So that is something every system faces. Even good systems eventually become slow and ossified. So the point is that you have to keep them nimble, keep them agile, keep on trimming the fat, and keep on staffing them with great people. And whenever required, reforms need to be done. So I think everybody faces this. I'm sure the BSF may possibly face it. I'm sure the ASI definitely faces it. DRDO also needs a lot of reforms. Please, please trust me, DRDO needs a lot of reforms. So yeah, that's the deal. Okay, I am not taking questions about religion and all these matters. Okay, this is not the place for that. Sushant says, I once saw a sign driving in Los Angeles called Little Bangladesh. Any views? Kind of curious on why. Must be a bunch of Bangladeshis who lived there and they felt like recreating their home. That's what, I mean, you have Little China, you have Chinatowns in the West, right? Um, I'm not sure if you have Little Indias. Of course, if you go to New Jersey, there's more than a Little India there. So why not have the Bangladeshis also create their own little corner of the world in Los Angeles? People, that's human nature, that you want to congregate together with people who are similar to you, who speak the same language, who look like you, who have a common background, cultural, um, etc., historical, ethnic background. You want to congregate together. Birds of a feather like to flock together, right? So I think if you have sufficient enough number of Bangladeshis, then they may want to create a small part of the city where it feels like home. So maybe that's why it is. I haven't seen this Little Bangladesh myself, but in case it's there, maybe that's the reason why it's there. Udbhav says, Jai Hind, Jai Bharat. Thank you. Well, thank you so much yourself, sir. Udbhav ji. Okay, Harshay says, are Gujjus not a warrior class? Expect Chalukyas, who were ancient kings of Gujarat. Why don't they contribute in the Indian army? This is such nonsense. This is such nonsense. If you look at the per capita contribution to the Indian army from every state, I'm not going to go and dig up that right now. If you do that, all you have to do is look at the per capita contribution. How many people from a state join the Indian armed forces out of every 1 lakh people in the population? I'm sure the statistics exist, and you'll be surprised if you see them. So I don't know why we like to fight each other in this country and point fingers at each other. Oh, this state is bad, that state is bad, these people are not contributing enough, these people are taking too much. This is a problem in this country that is causing us to keep fighting each other, and this is a prime example of that. So and so state is not a warrior class, they don't contribute to the Indian army. Come on, man, come on. Is this all you will do in your life? Pathetic, really. Rudai says, thank you. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your kind words and your contribution. Raghu Nandan Jahagirdar says, who would succeed Prime Minister Modi, and will she be able to create the same level of impact? What should the BJP do to make sure we build on top of what the Modi government has already done or started? Well, the most crucial period in a nation's history is transition periods, succession. You have to ensure the succession goes right, which means that the transfer of power has to happen to the right person. Otherwise, all the good work done by the previous ruler or the previous leader will be wasted if the wrong kind of person comes to power. So that's very important. Now, who will succeed Mr. Modi, etc.? I have no idea at this point in time. I think it's still a few years in the future, but not very far in the future, possibly. Okay, I don't know, possibly. So I think what the BJP needs to do, in case the BJP wants to stay in power next time, it needs to ensure that there is meritocracy, and the leaders, grassroots leaders and middle rung leaders who perform the best and who have the most potential, they should be promoted. And at the end of the day, the best among those should be the next eventual successor to Mr. Modi, whenever that happens. That's what needs to be done. Tanmay Pant says, why no science revolution in the Mughal Empire like the UK in the 17th century? Mughals culprit as the wasted resources in luxury. Have you seen a science revolution among the Turks? The Mughals were Turks, right? Have you seen a scientific revolution in Turkey during the 17th century, 16th century? There was no such thing. After the reign of Suleiman the Magnificent, everything went slowly, gradually downhill for Turkey. They did not have the culture of scientific excellence, of scientific inquiry. They did not have that, right? And so the same goes for the Turks who occupied India, the so-called Mughal Empire. They also did not have any of that. Um, the Persians at least had some of this. The Persians tried. The Turks, nothing. Pranay Kumar says, is it possible to transport payload by quantum mechanics? They've been everything, all transportation is at the end of the day quantum mechanical. Why is there friction between the wheels of a vehicle and the road? Because of quantum mechanics. Why does matter occupy space? Because of Pauli's exclusion principle. All of everything, all of reality is quantum mechanical if you go deep down. So beyond that, I'm not sure what quantum mechanical technologies you want to transport payloads, but even chemistry, chemical rockets, well, these chemical reactions are quantum mechanical in nature, aren't they? Nilay says, it's clear that there's no proof of fifth dimension. Then why is string theory so popular? String theory is so popular. It's like a real thing. It's because a small number of people have captured the academic institutions, the physics departments in the United States. I call them the string theory mafia. They have captured everything, and today in the US, if you want to do a PhD in theoretical physics, 9 times out of 10, you have to do it in string theory. And this is a completely futile endeavor, completely futile exercise. They've had 5-6 decades to find some breakthrough in physics. They've done nothing. All they've done is invent new, more complicated kinds of maths, which are fun, no question about it. I have no issue with math, but where's the physics? Where's the breakthroughs? There's not a single testable prediction made by string theory. So it's because a small number of people, the string theory of mafia, have captured academia, and that's why it is the way it is. That's why it's so supposedly so popular. Virgo Sagar, thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Genuine Beatbox says, do you wear full dress or only suit on top? I only wear suit on top. I only wear what's visible. Okay, Sushant says, the government dreams of being a superpower, yet corruption runs the show. Do they really think this works, or are they pretending not to notice? Maybe corruption is something the government hasn't created, but they have inherited. The Modi government did not create the corruption, right? Corruption exists, no question, allegedly everywhere. Allegedly it is everywhere. And allegedly it runs the whole country. Allegedly the whole system runs on allegedly corruption. But did the Modi government create this, or did they inherit it? They have inherited it. And one hears that at least at the very top level, the corruption has been wiped out. Hopefully. That's what one hears, hopefully. And then slowly you can bring it down. So one would like to see a war on corruption at the coming downstream also, but I'm sure it's a huge issue allegedly, a very big deep-rooted issue allegedly, so it's very hard to fight it. Maybe it will take decades to fight it. I don't know what it is. But I agree with you, Sushant, that without eradicating corruption, all this nonsense of superpower, Vishwaguru, it's all just going to be slogans. We're not going to get near that. So from that perspective, you are 100% correct. GGGSSS, and this is the last question for today. So the question is, what's the best way for a US citizen, OCI, to contribute to the Bharatiya national interest? Well, I'll tell you what's the best way. Become super wealthy and then invest in Bharat, in some sector that is crucial for India's national interest. Maybe the semiconductor sector, maybe defense manufacturing or something, right? So something like that you can do if you are wealthy. So first become super wealthy, then invest what you can in Bharat in a way that is great, that is aligned with Bharat's national interest. And if you're not super wealthy, well, it's not your fault. If you're not super wealthy, invest in whatever way you can in something like this. That's what I would say. Or you can act as an official ambassador of Bharat wherever you are, and help the people wherever you are. In the US, understand Bharat better. That's another thing you can do to contribute to Bharat's national interest. So be creative in whatever way you can contribute. Do contribute, and I appreciate the sentiment, and do well. All right. Okay, there's one more question. This has to be the last question. Okay, Spade, thank you very much, sir. I'll keep smiling. Sir. Gaurav says, I'm not able to understand the glove analogy in physics that you always give. the glove analogy. You mean quantum entanglement. So let's say you have two gloves. We know that gloves come in two shapes, right? Left-handed glove and right-handed glove. So I take these two gloves, brand new, I put them in two boxes. I put the two different gloves in two different boxes. One is a right-handed glove, one is a left-handed glove. I take one box, I mail it to Shri Vladimir Putin ji in Moscow. I take the other box and I mail it to Shri Xi Jinping ji in Beijing. Now I have shuffled the boxes before I mailed them, so I also don't know which box contains which glove. Okay, so Moscow and Beijing are thousands of kilometers apart. Now Shri Putin will open his box, and let's say he finds a left-handed glove. Then he will immediately know that Shri Xi Jinping has got the other one, the right-handed glove. So these two gloves, they form a single system. They are interconnected even though they are far apart. So let's say I take the box from Shri Xi Jinping and I send it to my friend in the Andromeda galaxy through a wormhole, so it travels very fast. So when my friend in the Andromeda galaxy opens the box and finds a right-handed glove, he or she or it will know immediately that whoever is on Earth has got a left-handed glove. So these two, even this system of two gloves, even though it is now disconnected by millions of light years, billions of light years, they are still correlated in some way. So that's an analogy for quantum entanglement. A quantum mechanically entangled system of particles is described by a single wave function. You can't separate the two. And yeah, if you know the state of one of the two particles, you will know the state of the other particle immediately, instantaneously, no matter how far it is. That's the deal. I hope it's hopefully comprehensible. So with that, we have come to the end of today's live stream. It's been a very long day. It's 11:20 p.m. over here. So I'm going to end it over here. Thank you so much for all your questions. And I will see you in the next live stream, which will happen day after tomorrow. Thank you so much. Take care. Keep asking questions. Keep raising your standards. And I'll see you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.